Good afternoon. My name is Captain Chris Edevine. I am the Regional Vice President for the Midwestern States of the American Merchant Marine Veterans Organization, or the AMMV. And I'd like to welcome you all here today as we celebrate the awarding of the Congressional Gold Medal to Reynolds Tomter. Just one more reminder, if you haven't silenced your cell phones, please do. Please check your cell phones. And one more housekeeping item afterwards, please stick around. We have 2 full-size sheet cakes and plenty of other goodies in the cafeteria, so we can hope we can all get some pictures and some share some sea stories with Reynolds afterwards. First, we'll proceed with our opening ceremonies. Performing the presentation of colors will be the Whitehall American Legion Post 191. Singing the national anthem will be Jan Ford with Jackie Goplin on piano. Please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red clear, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free
Okay, please be seated. Thank you. Big thanks to the Whitehall American Legion, and thank you, Jan and Jackie. That was beautiful. Next, performing the invocation will be Bud Tomter, who is the son of our veteran Reynolds. Bud?
My name is Reynolds Tomter, not the real one. I have bigger feet, but I could never fill his shoes, so I'm honored to be up here. If you would, please pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you, Father, for the honor of having known and been the son of Reynolds Tomter. We're here today to honor Reynolds and all of his fellow World War II merchant Marines. They served and stepped up, Father, during a time that we needed them to serve our country. And some sacrificed all for our freedom. Father, I thank you for a father to Julie and I, to a grandfather to our children, and to a great-grandfather to their children. He is such a good man to set examples for all of them, and we thank you for that, Lord. Father, thank you for the family and the friends who are here today. They are a huge part of Dad's life. He loves all of them so much, and that's what he lives for mostly. We pray that they have a safe trip back to wherever they're going in this country, Lord. And Father, we know you're here today with us. Thank you for that. We thank you for all those, Father, who have served this country. We ask that you protect them and be with them and know that they are never alone. Father, forgive us where we have failed you. Thank you for your grace and your love. And for, Lord, may you be glorified in all that we do today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for that, Bud. We are going to do a video presentation of the Merchant Marine song, which is entitled Heave Ho, My Lads, which was written by Jack Lawrence during World War II. And any World War II merchant mariner is very, very proud of this song. This was their anthem. Most of the general public has never heard of it. Performing it via a pre-recorded videotape is an artist in Florida, Sally Langlois, who has entertained at several Merchant Marine Veterans Conventions before. This is the Merchant Marine song, Heave Ho, My Lads.
Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. It's a long, long way to go. It's a long, long pull with our hatches full. Braving the wind, braving the sea, fighting the treacherous foe. Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. Let the sea roll high or low. We can cross any ocean, sail any river. Give us a good time. The submarines with the men of the Give us oil, give us the gas, give us the shells, give us the guns. We'll be the ones to see them through. Give us a chase, give us some planes, give us some parts, give us a ship, give us a hit parade, and we'll be on our way. Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. It's a It's a long, long pull with our hatches full, braving the wind, braving the sea, fighting the treacherous foe. Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. Let the sea roll high or low. We can cross any ocean, sail any river. Give us a good time, we'll deliver them the submarine, where the men of the Merchant Marine.
If I may, I'd like to talk about the Merchant Marine in World War II, because not too many people know what actually happened. And I have to talk about this a little bit before I can launch into our speakers, because this really brings into focus the significance of the Merchant Marine Congressional Gold Medal. At the onset of World War II, the Merchant Marine were immediately involved in the war. When I say immediately, simultaneously as Japan was attacking Pearl Harbor, the first U.S. flag merchant vessel was sunk by a Japanese U-boat. That vessel was the SS Cynthia Olsen. The captain and crew of that vessel didn't even know what hit them. They didn't know we were at war. They didn't know Pearl Harbor was being attacked, but they were the first casualty immediately at the onset of the war. The early months of World War II in 1942 were horrendous for the U.S. Merchant Marine. Our ships were sitting ducks. Hitler amassed his massive flotilla of U-boats right off the East Coast and the Gulf Coast of the United States and the Caribbean Sea. Our ships were sitting ducks. If the U.S. did not do anything about it, we would all be speaking Japanese or German today. What the U.S. did do to counter this offensive by Germany is they launched massive shipbuilding programs. The Liberty ships were mass-produced, and later in the war, the slightly faster Victory ships. The U.S. participated in Allied convoys in which protected convoys, a dozen or so ships at a time, would sail across the Atlantic, and they had a better chance of survival. Navy Armed Guard detachments were put on each merchant vessel with a gun crew. But more than anything, what helped the U.S. Merchant Marine turn the tables is their training and recruitment programs. Training facilities such as the Merchant Mariner School at Catalina Island, California, the Officers Upgrading School at Alameda, California, Hoffman Island Radio School, the Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, New York, and one facility that trained hundreds and hundreds of mariners, including Reynolds Tomter, was Sheepshead Bay, New York. Here, young men would learn the skills of seamanship, and they would take that trade overseas to engage in a global war. Ultimately, the Merchant Marine played a pivotal role in helping the Allies rebound and ultimately win World War II. One of my favorite statistics that I still can't get over every time I see it is that every hour during the last year of World War II, the U.S. Merchant Marine delivered an average of 8,500 tons of cargo to our U.S. and Allied forces. That is amazing. That is an amazing amount of sea lift. In total, over 250,000 young men served in the U.S. Merchant Marine. What the Merchant Marine accomplished in World War II did not come without a hefty price tag. 1 in 26 merchant mariners of World War II lost their lives in service to our country. 1 in 26. That number is about 8,500. That is a higher number per capita than any other service branch in the United States. Over 700 ships, over 1,000 gross tons, were sunk. In total, over 1,500 ships were sunk. An additional 11,200 U.S. merchant seamen were injured and wounded. Dozens of U.S. merchant mariners were captured and tortured as POWs in World War II. Every Allied invasion in World War II had the Merchant Marine present. And the Merchant Marine carried 7 million servicemen and women into combat zones during World War II. 7 million. When Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the GI Bill, he had a famous quote that the Merchant Marine would be included in similar bills in the future. In other words, FDR intended for the Merchant Marine to receive veteran status and veteran benefits. This did not immediately happen. FDR passed away, and so did the immediate hopes for our World War II Merchant Mariners to gain veteran status. Let's fast forward now all the way to 1984. In 1984, the group represented by myself and Captain Drew here today, the American Merchant Marine Veterans, incorporated in the state of Florida of merchant mariners who have served in World War II. In 1988, 43 years after the close of World War II, these merchant mariners sued the U.S. government and won, and finally received veteran status for World War II merchant mariners. 43 years. By this time, even the youngest of our World War II merchant mariners was rapidly approaching retirement age. And let's be honest, what meaningful benefits could the GI Bill do to somebody that late in their life? It couldn't really help them. And by the way, the age for recruitment for the United States Merchant Marine in World War II was age 16. So those of you who have 16-year-old sons or grandchildren, think of what it'd be like to send your child or grandchild of that age into a global conflict. Anyways, the American Merchant Marine Veterans Organization launched a campaign that's decades long and still ongoing to gain compensation for the absence of those GI Bill benefits. And we've been doing it through legislative efforts. Those efforts are ongoing. What did happen is in 2015, the first introduction of legislation for the World War II Merchant Mariners of Congressional Gold Medal Act was introduced by former Congresswoman Susan Brooks. It took 3 full 2-year sessions of Congress to get that bill passed. Finally, in 2019, late in the year, we got it past the House. Early 2020, we got it past the Senate. And just hours, and I do mean hours, before the world shut down for the pandemic, President Donald Trump signed into law the World War II Merchant Mariners Congressional Gold Medal Act. But it wasn't done yet because they still had to go through the whole process of designing the medal, minting the medal. It took an additional 2 years of meetings, committee work, the usual slow wheels of bureaucracy, but eventually in May of this year, in the Capitol building, led by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Drew and I were privileged to be part of the official Congressional Gold Medal ceremony that was long overdue, nearly 8 decades overdue for the recognition due to our World War II merchant mariners. And now that medal's been minted and put on display, the replica gold medals are now finally available to our mariners. So before we get on with the ceremony, I just want to speak a couple words about the American Merchant Marine Veterans Group. We're an all non-for-profit volunteer group. When I say non-for-profit, I mean that in the purest sense of the title. None of our officers or volunteers receive any type of compensation. We're a 501c3. We have a donation jar up front. We appreciate anything that you might want to drop in for us. And other than that, we're going to get started with our first speaker. Lieutenant Colonel Roy Honorud, U.S. Air Force, retired.
Thank you for that introduction. Welcome, everybody. Boy, what a nice crowd. I imagine that most of you don't know who I am or don't remember me. I grew up here in Pigeon. Bud Tomter has been my best friend since first grade. And now we live together, or we don't live together, but we live about 3 miles apart near the small town of Watkinsville, Georgia. I'm honored that the Tomters asked me to speak at this special ceremony. As kids, we knew about World War II, and we knew about the men that served, but they never talked about it. But occasionally we would hear a story about some exotic place or maybe even a funny story about the war. Today I'd like to tell you about Reynolds' time in the Merchant Marines. And as you can guess, Reynolds has a lot of stories. The first thing I asked him was, how did you end up in the Merchant Marines? What I didn't realize is at the time Reynolds got his draft notice, he was married to Dorothy. He had a 2-year-old daughter named Julie. Julie, I'm sorry, but I think I just gave your age out to this whole crowd. Anyway, Reynolds and another gentleman, Irvin Harnish, got their draft notices about the same time. So they got on a bus and went to Milwaukee for their induction physical and service assignment. They both wanted to go into the Navy. My first thought was, why not the Air Force? But of course, when I thought about it, the Air Force was not a separate service at that time. They became a separate service in 1947. As luck would have it, the last Navy slot went to the man right in front of Reynolds. So they got stamped Army. But as they're waiting for the bus to go back home, somebody mentioned that the Merchant Marines were looking for men. So they walked to the recruiter and signed up for the Merchant Marines, with the understanding that whichever service notified them first, that's where they'd have to go. Well, the Merchant Marines were first, and they both ended up going to basic training in Sheepshead Bay, New York, March 7, 1943. Reynolds was selected to be a baker and an aerial gunner. He made 2 to 3 dozen loaves of bread each morning, and the breads were about 18 inches long. After that task was accomplished, he would go to the chief cook and ask him what else needed to be made for the day. Cakes, cookies, pies, even pancakes and French toast. Reynolds worked several decks below the main deck, and while at sea, they were not allowed to go onto the main deck. So Reynolds said when they finally got to port and got to the main deck, the fresh air was a wonderful thing. I asked him, did he ever get seasick? He said on his first trip, he felt a little funny. So he asked an old salt about seasickness. And an old salt is an experienced sailor. It's slang for that. The guy said, if you feel funny, go eat a grapefruit, and you'll never get sick. Reynolds said it worked like a champ because he never got seasick in all his crossings. And the North Atlantic can be pretty rough at times. Reynolds made 6 crossings, mostly to Naples, Italy, Marseille, France. The crossings were freighters in a convoy, and they would have destroyer escorts, and some of the convoys would not have escorts at all. Each trip was with a different crew and a different ship. They left from different ports, from Boston, Massachusetts to Charleston, South Carolina. The trip to Naples took 17 days. Once there, they had about up to 2 weeks while they offloaded cargo. They would then turn around, transit back to the States, most of the time empty. As mentioned earlier, the Merchant Marines suffered terribly. 733 large vessels were lost to German U-boats, which we know as submarines. On a lighter note, Reynolds thought he might be able to make a little money. So he bought cigarettes in the States, took them to Europe, and sold them. And he made a little profit. Now, I have a theory that this little business got Reynolds interested in sales. And so that's how years later he ended up owning a general store in Pigeon. I have a story here that Reynolds told Julie several years ago, and she wrote it down. And I'm going to read it because it's a powerful story with a lesson, and I want to make sure that I tell it correctly. Remember, this is Reynolds in his own words. I reached Naples, Italy, February 1944. General Patton's march through Sicily had already taken place, and the Allied armies were pushing north, leaving behind a starving population. Italians, of course, but others as well. Like the Norwegian lady who was visiting Naples when the fascist war machine put a stranglehold on Europe and North Africa, and she could not get home. I can see her even now, after all these years. She, along with many others, would climb aboard our ship and head for the leftovers, which at sea we would have dumped overboard. Some of the civilians would sign up as servers on the boats to get food. I don't remember her name, but my ears were tuned to her Norwegian accent. I suppose I said something to her in Norwegian. At any rate, she identified me as a friend and a person she could trust. Our last encounter went like this. Coming aboard once again, pail in hand, she asked, "Kan I få litt brut?" I'm sorry for murdering the Norwegian language. It translates to, "Can I have a little bread?" It was against orders, but I cut a large loaf in half, wrapped it in a newspaper, and placed it in her arms. The next day, she stood beside the gangplank, looking up at me with a gift in hand, wild grapes, gathered as her expression of thanks. The Bible says it is more blessed to give than receive, Acts 20:35. I know this to be true. In my 100+ years, I have never missed what I have given to others for their well-being. I know that my destitute Norwegian friend needed to give something in return for that half loaf of bread. My prayer is that she lived a long and happy life, and that everyone might become more compassionate and giving. Very good story. Reynolds was in Marseille, France, on VJ Day, September 2nd, 1945. He spent another month there while they loaded her ship with iron plates used as runways. We call them PSP runways in Vietnam. They then transited back to the States, to Baltimore. December 1946, Reynolds was discharged from the Merchant Marines. He went to Penn Station in New York, got on a train to Chicago, another train to Eau Claire, where he had a joyous reunion with his family. Reynolds, I've always admired you for your hard-working attitude, your friendliness and optimistic nature, and that you can talk to anyone. I salute you for your service to this great nation as a Merchant Marine, and as a lifetime of service to this community. You have been instrumental in making Pigeon Falls a great place to grow up and live. Thank you, Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Colonel Aneroy. Our next speaker, Brigadier General Andrew M. Schuster, U.S. Army, retired.
I am indeed honored to be with you this afternoon as part of the Congressional Gold Medal presentation for Mr. Reynolds Tomter. I've been privileged to speak at events in Trempealeau County, and I first met Reynolds Tomter and his wife Dorothea 31 years ago when I was engaged to his niece Frederica Hoff, now my wife. I was actively serving in the Wisconsin Army National Guard at the time, and I'm proud to be related through marriage to the Tomters, Fremsteds, Hoffs, and Warners, and have enjoyed many visits to Reynolds' hometown of Pigeon Falls. For more than 30 years, I have had the honor of hearing about Reynolds' service to our country, and every year I learn more details. Reynolds was my age at the time we met, and Reynolds, you don't seem any older. Today is a day to recognize and honor Reynolds and to reflect upon all those who served in World War II, at war and on the home front. Tom Brokaw states that the documented stories of bravery and sacrifice, achievements and humility, loyalty and service, and coined the phrase, "They are our greatest generation." Reynolds Tomter epitomizes everything they went through before the war, including the Great Depression, and everything they endured in fighting and everything they endured after returning. Wisconsin has a long, proud history of service, of which Reynolds Tomter is a part. When I joined the National Guard in 1965, I was part of the legendary 32nd Red Arrow Division, and just 4 years before that, they were activated during the Berlin crisis. And after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the division was composed of activated Wisconsin and Michigan National Guard units. And they were one of the first ones to be prepared for overseas duty. The U.S. Merchant Marines were already contributing to the war effort as well. The Red Arrow Division was recognized for having served 654 days in combat, the longest of any division. 330,000 citizens from our state served in World War II. To put that into perspective, you heard earlier that the U.S. Merchant Marines had 280,000, and we heard how many deaths they had, over 9,500, which included some of the POWs who died after being held. Reynolds himself served actively in the Merchant Marines for 2 years and 5 months, which is 880 days. Throughout my 36 years in the military, I met many outstanding soldiers and airmen. Reynolds is one of the few merchant mariners I've met, and through him, I've gained a special appreciation for their role in World War II. Concurrent with my military duties, I was also full-time with the Wisconsin Department of Military Affairs, and after my retirement, I worked at the Wisconsin Veterans Affairs. For more than a decade, it was my privilege to meet veterans such as Reynolds throughout Wisconsin. We started a program called IOU based on Uncle Sam poster which says, "I want you for the U.S. Army." The message was from the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs. Our message was, "I owe you." We held many events around the state working with veterans in the veterans community to help those veterans get connected to their benefits. In 1944, you've heard a little bit about the history, but in 44, General Dwight Eisenhower declared, "When final victory is ours, there is no organization that will share its credit more deservedly than the Merchant Marines. Their contribution to the final victory will be long remembered." Well, we've heard it took many years for them to be recognized with benefits, that being in 1988. We, our country, owe them. Reynolds Tomter's story is exceptional, having served from March of 43 to 45. And Reynolds made 5 hazardous trips across the Atlantic. And just a few years ago, he was awarded some overdue medals. They included the Victory Medal, the Atlantic War Zone Bar and Medal, the Mediterranean Middle East War Zone Medal, the Honorable Service Ribbon, and the Merchant Marine Emblem. I very much respect the American Merchant Marine Veterans Organization and all they have done for decades to raise awareness and worked for just recognition of all U.S. merchant mariners, to include veterans like Reynolds. Due to their efforts, the Merchant Marines were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. The message was, we take away from ceremonies such as today is that we must never forget the sacrifices made by our veterans and how important it is to persist in recognizing their actions. I've learned so much from Reynolds in the recent months about his time with the Merchant Mariners. We spent time together in April at his 105th birthday ceremony, Memorial Day at the Bruce Valley Cemetery in Strum, Wisconsin, where he was honored. I'm proud to add that 4 of Reynolds' brother-in-laws, Oscar Hoff, Thurman Fremstad, David Hoff, and Rolf Hoff also served in the military. Another brother-in-law and his wife, Richard and Dolores Hoff, worked as civilians for Ryan Aircraft Corporation in California. Both Reynolds' son, Bud Tomter, and son-in-law, David Warner, also served in the military. And during Reynolds' time away, his wife, Dorothea, was in Pigeon Falls teaching school, supporting the home front, and raising their daughter, Julianne. Their son, Bud, was born after Reynolds' return. I am certain that Reynolds had a big role in inspiring all of their service to our country. As for myself, I'm number 8 of 12 children. My parents, John and Margaret Schuster, operated a small dairy farm in Minnesota and later in Shell Lake, Wisconsin, working hard on the home front during the World War II years and beyond. 6 of my siblings were born in Minnesota and 6 of us in Wisconsin. I'm proud to say that 6 of us, 4 brothers and 2 sisters, served our respective times in the military. Remembering and honoring our veterans in the way we are honoring Reynolds is crucial because it keeps history fresh in all of our minds. I recall my first deployment to Germany in 1982 as part of Reforger, Return of Forces to Germany. We flew to Ramstein Air Force Base and then were transported to Affelbach, a small village near Stuttgart. It made a deep impression that everyone was so welcoming to us as U.S. soldiers. They had memories of World War II and their liberation. At the end of the exercise, we put on a reception to thank them for their hospitality. Since then, many veterans have served our country all over the world. and we all need to continue learning from their experiences and sacrifice. Reynolds is being recognized today formally by another country today as well, Norway. And I like to think that if he traveled to Norway, he would be welcomed and honored. As I mentioned earlier, I've known Reynolds for over 31 years. He's one of the kindest and most caring men I know. I treasure our time together and the time I get to spend with him and family in Pigeon Falls. I'm so fortunate to know someone who personifies what it means to be an American, a Wisconsinite, and a good citizen. In 3 weeks, Frederick and I will be celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary, and I'm so blessed in many ways to be part of the Reynolds family. Now, why did I say that at the end? I guess it was a good idea. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this special day, and congratulations, Reynolds, and I too salute you.
Thank you, General Schuster. Thank you. As the General mentioned, we have some Norwegian recognition coming for Reynolds. And our next speaker presenter is going to present Reynolds with the Norwegian Nova Scotian Convoy Cup Award, as well as the Norwegian Liberation Medal. Coming all the way from the Norwegian Embassy in Washington, D.C., the Assistant Defense Attaché, Captain Egil Vostrand. Captain.
I need my glasses. Reynolds, family of Reynolds, congressmen, friends. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be the government of Norway's representative at this event. It is also a great privilege to meet Mr. Tomter and his family, and not least to be among all of you that are present here today honoring Reynolds. I will also like to use this opportunity to give some extra credit to the American Merchant Mariner Veterans Associations represented here today by Captain Drew and Captain Chris Edevin. Their work is highly valued and of great importance. We are here today to celebrate a man who is not only a merchant mariner and a veteran from Second World War, but he is also a true hero. Reynolds crossed the North Atlantic Ocean 6 times during Second World War, sailing on vessels that brought supplies to Allied forces fighting in Europe. Reynolds is today about to receive the Congressional Gold Medal, the Norwegian Convoy Medal, and the Norwegian Liberation Medal in recognition for his effort during the Second World War. No medal can compensate for the hardship, the anxiety, and the horrors that sailors in the Navy and the Merchant Marine lived through during the war, and for many of them after the war. For those of us who never had to go through the kind of hardship that Reynolds and his fellow merchant mariners experienced, I think it's hard to even begin to imagine what it takes to live through missions that these brave men conducted during the war. Sir, you have our deepest respect. I will use this opportunity to say some words about the Norwegian merchant marine efforts during the war. As you all probably know, the Norwegian merchant mariners played an important part when it comes to the Norwegian contribution during the World War II. This contribution was actually of strategic importance to the Allied fight against the Nazis. In April 1940, the Norwegian shipping and trade mission, Nortraship, was established in London. Despite the German invasion and the Luftwaffe's depredations in Norway, the fleet survived virtually intact. When King Haakon of Norway reached London, he delivered 4.8 million ton Norwegian merchant marine to the Allied cause. The Norwegian merchant fleet supporting the Allies at the start of the war comprised about 1,000 vessels, manned by 30,000 sailors. By 1942, 40% of Britain's oil rode to their island aboard Norwegian ships. Without the merchant marine contribution, England would probably not have made it through the war. The Norwegian war sailors suffered the most casualties per capita of any of the armed forces that served during World War II. And during 5 years of war, 706 vessels were lost to enemy action, and 3,670 Norwegian sailors died, plus a further 977 foreign crew members, helping to man Norwegian ships. They were all tasked with the dangerous job of carrying supplies across the U-boat-infested Atlantic, where torpedoing was notorious. The Norwegian merchant mariners never received credit for this crucial component to Allied victory until recent years. And I guess many merchant mariners from other countries have had the same experience when it comes to recognition of their war efforts. As we sit here today, the international rule-based order and democratic values are under attack by both Russia and China. The struggle and the fight made against the Nazis and the fascist regimes during the Second World War should be a huge reminder of the importance of us standing together and protect our democracy, our values, and the rule of law. The current support to the Ukrainian fight shows clearly that the bonds between allies across the Atlantic are as strong as ever. Bonds that were to a high degree built through the operations during World War II. So, it is a privilege to be here today together with Reynolds and family and be a part of this great occasion. Both Norway and the United States of America are maritime nations that are strongly depending on our merchant mariners, both in war and peace. I think the people of both our nations today greatly appreciate the effort, the sacrifices that have been made through the years, and especially during the Second World War. On behalf of the Norwegian Embassy, it is a great honor for me to present the Norwegian Convoy Medal and the Norwegian Liberation Medal to Reynolds, and to express our deep-felt gratitude for your service and sacrifice. Norway is very thankful for your invaluable contributions to the struggle for freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Vostrand. Our next presenter is from the United States Maritime Administration, of which us in the maritime circles abbreviate as MARAD. Doris Bouch is retired from the Maritime Administration, and she has a special presentation for Reynolds. Doris?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a little wobbly. It's very exciting for me to be here. Reynolds and I have been friends since I retired from the Maritime Administration. One of my neighbors said, you know, there's a merchant mariner, a merchant marine guy who lives in Pigeon Falls, Wisconsin. I said, what? Pigeon Falls? Who is it? And we've been friends ever since. The Maritime Administration, for those of you who don't know who we are, is responsible for all of America's waterborne transportation system, which includes working to maintain the overall health of the U.S. merchant marine. I'm a 20-year veteran of the Maritime Administration. My last position, I was the director for the Great Lakes region and was based in Chicago. I am really thrilled to be here to honor Reynolds Tomter. The Maritime Administrator has written a letter of congratulations to him, and I will read excerpts from that letter for you. Dear Mr. Tomter, on behalf of U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and the Maritime Administration, I would like to extend our heartfelt congratulations to you upon receiving the Congressional Gold Medal for Merchant Mariners of World War II. Among the various forms of recognition that Congress bestows, the Congressional Gold Medal is often considered the most distinguished. Through this venerable tradition, Congress has expressed public gratitude on behalf of the nation for distinguished contributions for more than 2 centuries. During World War II, more than 240,000 merchant mariners stepped forward to transport tons of millions of war supplies and more than 7 million servicemen under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. The medal is an inspiring depiction of the resolve of the mariners who sailed into harm's way for our nation when more than 80 years ago, America became what President Roosevelt called the arsenal of democracy. With reverence and gratitude, we remember the more than 6,000 merchant mariners who were lost on more than 1,500 ships of the U.S. Merchant Marine during World War II. Sadly, most are no longer with us, but we are so fortunate to be able to share with you, Reynolds Tomter, and the American Merchant Marine Veterans Organization, the presentation of your Congressional Gold Medal. We are inspired by your courage and example. We are blessed by the democracy you helped preserve, and we are honored to have the opportunity to be with you in spirit as the Congressional Gold Medal is presented to commemorate all that you and so many more did for our nation. Sincerely, Ann C. Phillips, Maritime Administrator. Thank you.
I thank you very much, Doris, for representing the Maritime Administration. Drew and I were both at the official ceremony on May 18th, and the incoming Maritime Administrator, Ann Phillips, was present, as was the outgoing acting interim administrator, Lucinda Leslie. So we did spend some time with them in D.C., and they were at the official ceremony. My next guest speaker is the national president of the American Merchant Marine Veterans, coming all the way from Cape Coral, Florida, Captain Drew DiMattia.
Good afternoon. What a privilege of coming up from Florida, dodging alligators and snakes and everything else, and now I'm dodging deer and elk. What an honor, Mr. Tomter. Ladies and gentlemen, panel aboard here, do you realize we have a global outreach going on right here, right now? It's phenomenal. I am such taken back with what Julie and Doris has put together for this panel. Is phenomenal. It just speaks heavily for the alliances we have around the world. The American Merchant Marine Veterans strives to carry the torch of our greatest generation. And I must say, to the honors of all you in Wisconsin, it was this gentleman right here, Captain Chris, that picked up the torch from the late Morris Harvey and all the other late presidents of this organization that started in 1984. So Chris, nice job. Mr. Tomter, we met this morning at City Cafe.
On plan.
What an unbelievable story just that was. We had to ask for permission to come aboard, and he granted it right away. We started talking about some things that he was doing on board. My father was a cook in the Navy during the Korean War, and I learned from him, as like Mr. Tomter, it means a lot when you put together a menu and a meal and you give some satisfaction to the crew. It's not many times on board a ship, because everybody's working hard, that you come together to socialize a little bit, and the meal hour was that common denominator. So immediately, it was just amazing on how you shared some of those stories, one of which, I asked you if you had a mixer on board when you mixed all the dough, and he said no, he did everything by hand. Didn't even have a mixer. Now, they made mixers back then, but a lot of times they were forgotten in the warehouse. When they built the ship, they wanted to get the ships off the block, and they sailed without a mixer. So, unbelievable. So, when you look at this history of the Merchant Marine, of which carries on today, it speaks highly of the current events going on, where Doris is mentioned, and she got a direct letter from the administrator, Ann Phillips, that women are leading the charge. And I got to tell you, I'm hopeful and optimistic that things are changing. And it speaks highly of the administrator. We've done multiple things, as Chris has mentioned. We were in D.C. together, and we recently did a keel cutting ceremony up in Philadelphia, where the Admiral showed up and had some wonderful accolades for everything that's going on. So let's look at a couple of details on the winning combination. As you heard from Norway, as you've heard from other ally stories, what did it took, the tenacity in Mr. Tomter and anybody else in the crew, it didn't matter who you are, the tenacity of these young kids, 16, 17, sometimes lying about their age, 15, to get on board these ships, the ingenuity and the innovation of building the ships faster than they were sunk. And they did it. And with regards to the convoys, you all can recall the recent movie, Greyhound. Well, even the convoys were attacked, and it was like running the gauntlet. These ships were getting still hit, and yet the vital supply chain of cargo was now overcoming the fact that they were now having more ships delivered than they could sink. And that's pretty much one of the magical solutions of what occurred there. So all that being said, it's just now coming up here and being invited with Julie and this family and the incredible story, I'm blown away. I'm blown away from everybody I've met here. This is the largest turnout we've ever had, Chris. Mr. Tomter, you win records. You all get a star. Congratulations. And the fact that we got our congressman here, part of that story in regards to how the gold medal was signed into law, it just speaks heavily of the community of Wisconsin. I'm very hopeful as we continue to build our allies and maintain global reach with Norway. If I may add, and don't hold this against me, Army, but when you see the date on the bottom of the Merchant Marine flag, 1775, we're actually 2 days older than the Army. June 12th versus June 14th. So I got to tell you, the synergy that's going on here is extraordinary. And I am blown away with what I see today and what I've been hearing, and the lovely family from the Tomters. It's just absolutely incredible. So God bless you, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you, Captain Drew. Up next, we have a video presentation. Can I get some kind of confirmation in the back that our video is working, please? Thank you.
From Mr. Yoho.
At the, can I just speak for a minute before we start the presentation? Dave Yoho is a World War II merchant mariner who trained at the same facility as Reynolds. He trained at Sheepshead Bay, New York. He served in the engine department during World War II. And if Dave was here today, he'd have a big, long paragraph for me to introduce him, and I don't have that paragraph with me. And I know that Dave's probably watching on live stream, and I'm sorry, Dave, that I don't have your proper introduction. But what I can tell you about Dave Yoho is after World War II, he went on to become a world-famous motivational speaker, a world-famous businessman, and about 7 years ago, he found out about AMMV, and he has just been one of our biggest supporters. He's spoken at all of our conventions, and during the official Congressional Gold Medal ceremony in the Capitol, they told Dave that he could speak for 2 minutes, and Dave promptly spoke for 10 minutes, and let us know all about the Merchant Marine. So this would not be a complete ceremony today if we didn't play Dave's part of his the ceremony that he was the speaker at. So from the Congressional Gold Medal ceremony on May 18th, this is Dave Yoho.
From Mr. Yoho. Okay. I'll find a way to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Yoho.
I stand before you with humble tribute to my fallen brothers. 1941, Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. A day of infamy. 3 years before that, the President of the United States created a law called the Merchant Marine Act. Now, the Merchant Marine have been an active force in our society since the Revolutionary War, but Roosevelt's declaration of this act made us a part of the military. And so it began. We were a nation of 130 million. We conscripted, put into uniform, 16 million men and women, 12.5% of our population. Never done before, never will be repeated, and we were part of that. 250,000 of us were recruited to be part of that 16 million. And the reason they called us the greatest generation is not only about us, but for putting all those people in uniform. The women served our country in jobs that were performed by men in a time you might not even understand. This war ended before most of you were born, but there was a sense of patriotism, and that's where we came about. 250,000 of us volunteered for this. You had to be, in those days, in the early days, you had to be 18. Then they reduced it to 17. But a strange thing happened. They sank our ships faster than we could build them. Awful price to pay right off our coast of the United States. We sent our ships from Reykjavik, Iceland. We sent them in convoy, and they were knocked off one after the other. But we survived, some of us. We did, as you've heard from many of these prominent speakers, 1 out of 26 of us died, but thousands of us came home deprived of a part of our life that is probably one of the least understood missions that ever was accomplished in modern warfare. And by 1943, we had more ships than we had men because of the loss rate. And so, for the first time also in modern history, a law was passed allowing our government to conscript 16-year-old boys. Now, I want you to reflect on your attitude of life, your family, those you know. What wisdom lies there in a 16-year-old? We think we knew everything. We know nothing. And the majority of that conscription went to people like ourselves. Three training bases in the United States, one in Florida, one in California, and one in Sheepshead Bay, New York. I was privileged to serve there. And then we have the Merchant Marines Academy. You saw the march in here today. The only academy in the military in the United States that is entitled to flow a banner standard from their flag. And the reason for that is because of something that few people know. When you graduate from that academy, the last 6 months you spend at endeavors. They went as cadets on the ships, and 142 of them didn't make it home. So what you are giving tribute to, we gave you a little bit of a synopsis of our lives. You have it printed there. You're going to hear more from us. As so few of you have said, this isn't an ending, this is a beginning. And in your beginnings, you will hear your message repeated over and over again. I will be the featured speaker on Memorial Day at the World War II Memorial, and I will be at the head of the parade that leaves and faces 300,000 people. Because of you! This is what you erupted. You may not like all the things that come out of it, but I am it. You saw my buddy here. This man is 102 years old in 4 weeks. And I am on the other side of the spectrum. I was, when the war ended, I had been on a ship for 13 months in the Pacific Ocean. When the war ended, August 15, 1945, 4 days later, I turned 17. We brought home the scars of war. And I don't know if you saw the movie Saving Private Ryan. There's a scene in it where an old man kneels in the cemetery in Normandy, France. And he kneels in that cemetery and he weeps. And he says, did I lead a worthy life? Did I do what I raised my hand and swore to do? Did I do that? And that's the paean that you hear from us from time to time. We delivered 15 million tons of goods, war materials in 5 continents. It started with Europe, 15 tons. 13 million tons to the South Pacific, 8 million tons to the Mediterranean, 5 million tons to Russia. Now put it all together, that's what came out of our growth, where you had the wisdom to bring us aboard. And so again, we thank you. And in closing, I have what I think you may find beneficial. How do we send our children to war? And what happens when we come back? I take no umbrage in the delay. You people didn't cause that. The people before you didn't cause that. You cannot know what you do not know, and I hope we've opened up your veins to know some of what we faced. I'm proud to be their spokesman. I'm still active in business. I'm 94 years of age. I speak every day, and I speak all over the world. And from my voice and my timbre, you'll see what God has endowed me to say to you. So hundreds of years ago, we called the men to war. The Army led us to these different squares, and there was a beautiful song written about it. And it was written, unfortunately, in an Irish dirge, and it was done in Gaelic, and that was called Londonderry Air. And then in 1910, an English barrister wrote English words, and you may remember it as Danny Boy, because it talks of a parent sending a child away. And so I said, oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone, and all the tulips floiling. 'Tis you must go, and I must bide. And from that balm that he put into it, balm, B-A-L-M, put into his words, comes an ending, because we did our job. We came home to a society that wasn't ready for anyone, not only for us. Imagine all those people coming home and trying to get jobs. And so we were forgotten, and I really stood for that song today because that was us. And so that this ends then in a prayer. And I've paraphrased the last words of Danny Boy to say this to you. But if I return and the guns of war are silenced, and I am dead, as dead I may well be, please come and find the place where we are lying and kneel and say an Ave, a prayer for us. And we shall hear, though soft yet tread above us, and in our tombs 'twill warm and softer be, if you'll not fail in kneeling to say you honor me, then we will sleep in peace for all eternity. And as you leave here today, these hallowed halls, these beautiful surroundings, and take with you the memories of what you've seen and heard, and you've seen and heard of us, then remember, when you see others, tell them about us. I gave you a tip sheet. I will be speaking at the World War II Memorial. Why don't the universities, why don't the schools, why don't the churches, why don't the unanointed hear what you've said to us today? You honor us in appreciation. And so, when you're with others, say to them of what we did. Urge them to read about us and find out about us. Greet us today if you can. Then say to those, we gave up our yesterdays for your and their tomorrows. God bless the United States of America. God bless the United States Merchant Marine veterans of World War II. Heave-ho! Heave-ho! Thank you. Thank you.
And a big thank you to Dave Yoho for having that speech at the official ceremony and allowing us to use it today. Now, the Congressional Gold Medal is just what it implies. It is an act of Congress. So it is very fitting that our final speaker and presenter of today is representing Wisconsin's 3rd District, Congressman Ron Kind.
Good afternoon, everyone. Captain Chris, thanks for letting me go after Dave there, by the way. I'll try my best, but Captain Chris, thanks for emceeing today's event. You've been doing a great job. And Captain Drew, thanks for coming all the way up from Florida to be with you. It's a little easier visiting Wisconsin in August. I want to see you back here in January or February, and you can bring how many alligators that you want with you at that time, but it's a real honor to have you here. And Bud, to you and the whole Tomter family, thank you for taking good care of Reynolds throughout the years and for helping pull all of us together here today. It truly is a special event. To my good friend Doris, thank you too for participating and being here and contributing. Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Rood, thanks for sharing some of the personal stories that you've had with Reynolds throughout the years. And General Schuster, our Army Ranger, thank you. It's a little easier, marrying into the family and being affiliated and associated with everyone, but thank you for your service throughout the years. And also Egil Vasselrud from the Norwegian Embassy, our military attaché. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to come all the way from Washington to be here. Our relationship with Norway couldn't be stronger. They are a crucial friend and ally. The synergy between our two countries from a security point of view, from economic, but he already knew how deeply embedded we are with Norwegian culture here in western Wisconsin, with so many of us with Norwegian roots and families and that tradition and heritage and Norwegian churches sprinkled throughout here. So hopefully you're enjoying your visit here to God's country, as we refer to it. And a special thank you to the Color Guard, for you being here and your presentation today, and to the representatives of the various service organizations, thank you, and for your service to our nation. We have many in the law enforcement community who are here with us sharing today's event. Quick shout out to Superintendent Mike Bagley. Mike, thanks so much for what you do in the school district here and opening up this school. You and Principal Damon Lisowski have been doing a great job. I don't know how you survived COVID, but you've been doing a great job. And we knew we were going to need a bigger room for today's event. I couldn't think of a better place than this auditorium. I do want to just quickly acknowledge and say hi to a very dear friend of mine as well, Leland Chenoweth, who has been a good friend with Reynolds through the years. Leland, I think, is, 103 now, another World War II vet. Had a chance to chat with him as I walked in. He's going great. He's going strong, but really neat to see you here, Leland, and thank you again for your service to our nation. Reynolds, we're all here because of you. This falls under the category, it's never too late to do the right thing. As Captain Chris pointed out, it took a while for Congress to get it right in recognizing veterans' benefits to the Merchant Marine and the service that you all did for our nation. It took a little bit longer for us to catch up with the Congressional Gold Medal, but we finally did that. I was a proud sponsor, original sponsor of that legislation when it was reintroduced with my good friend, Representative John Garameni from California. All we had to do is just bring this to the attention to the rest of our colleagues that there is a missing piece to our honor for those who served our nation, and it was with the Merchant Marines, and we needed to pass legislation to honor them with the Congressional Gold Medal. And we did that in 2020 when it was signed into law, just on the cusp of COVID, so it's been a little bit difficult doing these ceremonies, especially when we had to wait for the gold medal to catch up. But we do this well, I think, as a nation. But we do this particularly well here in western Wisconsin, honoring our veterans, coming together as a community as we are today, and saying thanks to people like Reynolds and what they did for our nation. As many of you are aware, Tawny and I are going to be stepping down after 26 years as your representative, and nothing has brought me greater honor than the chance to represent all you in Washington, my home area, throughout the years. It's been the honor of my life. I never intended it to be an honor for my entire life, so this is a good time for us to step down. But you're not getting rid of us. Since we were born and raised here, this is where we raised our family. We're going to stay here, figuring out new ways to contribute to the community. But people have asked me over the past year or so, what have I been most proud of as a member of Congress? And I say, that's easy. It was those opportunities given to me as a representative to travel abroad and visit our troops in the field. And seeing the job that they do for us each and every day. They are the best and the brightest that we have to offer as a nation. They're well-trained, they're well-motivated. We send them off to these distant lands. We ask them to carry out incredibly dangerous tasks for our own safety and security, tasks that we asked Reynolds to do during the Second World War, and they just do it so incredibly well. I've been to Iraq 5 times, Afghanistan 6 times. I even went to the Kosovo theater during the height of that air campaign in the late 90s to visit with our troops. And I just wish all Americans had the opportunity to go and see what we ask our young men and women in uniform to do for us, because you'd be equally, if not more, proud. And I think it's probably one of the reasons why my youngest son, Matt, as soon as he graduated college a year and a half ago, he immediately signed up for officer candidate school at Quantico with the Marines. And today I'm very proud to say that he is an infantry commander at Camp Lejeune and soon to ship off to Europe to train with our allies there in light of what Putin is doing in Ukraine. And who would have imagined that here in the 21st century we'd still be facing land wars in Europe. It's just a god-awful situation, but thank goodness for our security capability, especially when it's coupled with great allies like Norway. And the deterrent effect that can play as it did successfully during the Second World War. When Reynolds was shipped off, we were fighting the great isms of the 20th century, from Nazism, fascism, to Japan's imperialism. And no one knew how this was going to turn out. Fortunately, the good war turned out the right way in order to secure peace and freedom and liberty throughout the globe. But it was very difficult to accomplish that. If you even just look at what the Merchant Marine did for us during that time, maintaining the safe supply chain lines that were crucial in these battles, transporting 7 million troops across the oceans to the battlefields to stop the forces of tyranny and oppression from sweeping the globe. And it was very treacherous and highly dangerous. They took their hits too, and we suffered many loss of lives and casualties within the Merchant Marine because they were sitting ducks like any other ship during that time. And they were also on guard and patrol with our borders along the coast looking for enemy ships and submarines that were trying to disrupt our supply lines and take down our troop transport ships. And they did it so very well. So this is completely right and proper that even though it's coming a little bit late, that we are able to finally pay our respects and show our gratitude to one of our own, Leland Tomter, here in our own community, and what Reynolds did for us during those years. And nothing brings me greater honor, Reynolds, than being able to get back in Washington in time to participate in this event. And it's because of people like you, Reynolds, that gave me the inspiration a little over 20 years now to author and help get past the Veterans History Project. It was a Father's Day weekend. I was sitting out at the picnic table with my Uncle Donnie, my dad's brother, and my father, and they, for the very first time, started talking about their service when they were in the service. Uncle Donnie flew bomber missions in the Pacific during the Second World War. He was 99 when he just passed away earlier this year. My father was Korea, a war generation. And for the first time, they started talking about their service. And I told them to stop because I wanted to run into the house to get my family video camera because Johnny and Matt were like 3 and 1.5 at the time. And I wanted to record them so that when they get old enough, that they'll know what their grandfather and great uncle did for them. And as I was videotaping this, as they were telling their stories, I said, you know, given today's technology, we need to be doing this throughout the country and encouraging family members to sit down with the Reynolds of the world and ask them to share their story of what it was like to serve our nation during times of conflict and at times of peace. So out of all that came the Veterans History Project, where we've been trying to capture these stories before it's too late throughout the country. And I'm proud that we've collected about 120,000 stories of our veterans throughout the years, and they are now being archived, a copy of that video, at the Library of Congress, so future generations will never forget the service and sacrifice that came before them. And we're still at it. And so, Bud, with your permission, I'm going to leave you a VHP brochure, and maybe Reynolds has another story or two in him that you might be able to coax, and we can get a copy for your family to keep and then send a copy to the Library of Congress so that Reynolds can join that great collection of veteran stories for our nation. And I'll leave that with you. But I also, Reynolds, decided to honor you by having an American flag flown over the United States Congress this past week in honor of your service. And I will be proud to be able to present that to you as well today. And you know, when you think about it, you know, we still have the Lelands, we still have the Reynolds, but there are so few of them today. One of the reasons I wanted to come was to see if Reynolds will share with us how he cracked the code at 105 years old. I mean, what was it, Reynolds? Was it diet? Was it exercise, clean living, optimistic life, the love of your family? I want to know, but if all of that. But if I'm a Tomter, I'd be sitting pretty good right now, knowing you have coming from good bloodline, you got some good DNA in you. Because Reynolds, we love you and we hope you live forever, man. That would be wonderful. So we do this, and you know, people ask me, what am I going to miss not being in office? I'm going to miss days like today, you know, when we're able to gather together as family, friends, in the community, and have these type of events where we recognize our veterans and what they did for us, because As I said, we do this well as a nation, but we do this particularly well throughout western Wisconsin, I found throughout the years, and I'm confident we're going to be able to continue that as long as we've got men and women to honor, and there are many of them. So it's been a great honor to be here and be a small part of this ceremony, to be a small part of what I've been able to try to do on behalf of the Congressional District these past 26 years. And so God bless you, Reynolds. God bless all of our troops, wherever they're serving us throughout the globe. And may God continue to bless these United States of America. And it wouldn't be much of a ceremony, Captain, unless we do the actual presentation of the gold medal. So, Reynolds, I warn you, it's not all gold, so don't go to the local bank and try cashing it in. We want you to keep that and enjoy it. But congratulations, buddy. It's really an honor to be here to recognize you today, especially with so many distinguished dignitaries who participate in with your family around. So thank you, everyone.
Congressman, would you like to give Reynolds his, it's in the black box.
It is heavy. Who are we looking at? Smile to the camera right in front. Woo! Keep hold! Keep hold!
Thank you, Congressman, for being part of this ceremony and this special day. And we have one thing on the left end of the agenda, and that's just closing remarks from the family. So I'll let the ceremony end with their words. I'd just like to thank everybody who was involved in making today happen. Whatever your role was, large or small, we appreciate what you did. And of course, thanks to the Whitehall High School for having us all here today. So thank you very much. And Reynolds, I didn't get a chance to tell you myself yet, thank you for your service. And for the rest of the veterans in this room, thank you for your service. And with that, I'll give it to anybody from the immediate Tomter family who wants to close the ceremony with their remarks.
Wow, just amazing. I don't know how to thank everybody out here. There's just nothing to say that you can go beyond that. Yeah. He finally won the gold, people. Yeah, you should look at that. Dad, it's been an honor. I love you so much. What a wonderful thing for our families to experience. I'm so blessed, and my sister Julie are so blessed to have a father at our age, and a father that can set an example even today in whatever he does. We'll never measure up, but we can strive all our lives to do that. At home in Georgia, we have, at our church, we go to Sunday school every Sunday morning, and it's a great class. We're called the senior adults. And so one Sunday, my wife Ellen said, they were asking for prayer requests and praises, and she said, well, we have a praise. Bud's dad just turned 105, and that was a praise. And so there's this older gentleman who sits in the back row. He has a real dry sense of humor. And he said, oh, that's great. He's got it made. And I said, I don't understand that. You'll have to explain that, how he has it made. And he says, well, you very seldom read in the paper where someone over 100 passes away. And I said, well, in that case, he does have it made. So, I'd like my sister to stand. Julie? My sister is a vital part of the community. I live so far away. I miss so many things. But I want to thank her for putting all of this together, working with Captain Drew and the captains who were here at Chris. And thank you so much for coordinating all this. I know you were back and forth a million times. I got in at just a few of the items, but you did a fabulous job in putting this together. So thank you. It was a great honor to Dad, and thank you from our family. I want to thank the speakers here today. It was an honor to have you here. Dad was honored to have you here. So thank you for all you did, Roy and Andy and Eagle, close enough? He said sometimes the Americans call him Eagle. And I said, that's appropriate. So Congressman Ron, thank you for your part in all of this too. It's been an honor to listen to you and listen to the stories. It's been so great. And thank you, Jan, for your beautiful rendition this morning. That was wonderful to have someone sing it that we love. Thank you for the Huffs, the Evensons, the Tomters that are here, all of our relatives. And thank you all. You are the community that has supported my dad for years and years. And he loves all of you. This is what he lives for, is you people. He loves to run into people. I mean, he comes down to visit us in Georgia. We'll go to a Waffle House. 2 minutes later, he knows everybody's name, who he's sitting next to. He knows the cooks. And the next time you come in, the next morning, the cooks go, Reynolds! It's amazing. It's just amazing. So just the kind of guy he is. I'll never live up to that, but I really enjoy watching him interact with other people. So.
He must have something to say.
Oh, he will. Yeah. He will. So the people that paid their price by passing away, who died, the Merchant Marines who died in the service, I look out at this crowd and I think of all the people's lives here that have crossed, their lives have crossed with Dad's life. And it's just amazing to look out here. And this isn't everyone. There's so many people throughout the country have crossed paths with Dad. And I think about those who didn't have that opportunity. They passed away. They didn't have friends. They didn't have relatives. They didn't have families. And they're the ones who we should really, really be honoring on top of everyone. They gave their lives for our freedom. And freedom today is used so easily and so common. But when you look at it, what these men and women did to gain our freedom is amazing. And so that's why we're here today. I thank you all for being here. I thank the Whitehall High School system for inviting us in and showing us how to do this right. Thank you for that. Dad, you want to come up and say something? Oh, wait a minute, Dad. Yes.
I don't know what to say. But wow. It looks like it's about 4,000 people here. And I love it, and I thank you. It's unbelievable what your friends will do for you. Thank you, right from here. Thank you again. Hope to see you later today, right out of the room.
Coffee and everything in the outside there. Anything else, Julie?
Refreshments in the galley, right?
Yep.
And I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to drink some coffee. And I've been drinking it for 103 years. So here I am.
Dad, what do you say every day?
Oh, Have a good day, everyone, unless you have other plans.